Hi, everybody. I'm Corey Philly, and I'm the Executive Director of the Vancouver Fringe Festival, which is running September 8th to 18th on Gravel Island. And we're here today to talk to Anthony Lee of Discounted Hot Pot. But first, I'd like to actually say that we'd like to acknowledge that we're on the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. It is an honor to live, work, and fringe on these territories. I just got past a workshop with Jessica Chambers and Jonathan Ryder, both who've worked for Broad on the Beach, who are instilling some, production ideas and thoughts into fringe artists' brains about what is possible and vision for the future, and that was very cool. We have a whole bunch of shows, of course, that are going on through this week. We still have 6 more days of everything. Please go to vancouverfringe.com to take a look at all the shows that are there, look at the workshops. This today is sort of our sponsor day, and we're having a little get-together, and then we're all going to go see Sequence and Fringe at the Improv Center at 9 o'clock, which is this wonderful drag show that Dave DeVoe, Peach Kabbalah, is putting together for the Fringe artists and the Fringe audience. So please do check it out. It is also on vancouverfringe.com. What else is happening? There's a big movement workshop that's happening over in Lot 55 at 1 p.m., which is free to the public. So it's just going to be move your body and get down, I think, a little bit. I think more move your body. And and I just wanted to say, every day I'm amazed at all the volunteers that come out to help at the Fringe, and they deal with different changes in schedules, and they go where they're needed unexpectedly, and they're dealing at the box office in front of house and all that. So when you see people and they're greeting you and they're taking your ticket number or I should say these days checking off your name on a list in front of the venue, please understand that every single one of those people is a volunteer, and that they've been working really hard to make your experience at the Fringe great. So, just imagine all of that, please, because we're so proud of them. There's 300 plus, and they've come out this year to actually be back in the Fringe, and that is always so exciting for us. We're so excited to see that sort of return. So I'm just going to move right on in it. Hi, Anthony. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
Good. Yeah, I was here yesterday, and I think I was feeling a little grumpy, so sorry everybody. But I feel much better today. I feel kind of refreshed today. It's sort of like I turned the page to the next week, and I'm really feeling eager about what's going to happen. How about yourself? Maybe if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself to the audience and just talking a little bit about, where what city you were born in, where you're from, that kind of thing.
Right. Okay, well, I feel great. I didn't have breakfast today, but
I have a cookie over there.
That's amazing. I am Anthony. I am a filmmaker and a theater maker based in what is colonially known as Vancouver. English is my second language, so if I stutter, that's normal. I'm from Hong Kong, and I grew up there until the age of 17, and then moved here in Vancouver. To continue with my university, and 6 years later, here I am making a French show.
Which university did you go to?
I went to Simon Fraser University.
Oh, you went to SFU, yes, also my alma mater.
Yes.
And
it's funny because I actually went to the film program.
Right.
So I'm not technically, I didn't train in a theater school. I went to a film school. Mm-hmm. But over the course of my university, I thought, okay, well, I would love to take some theater classes. And then I ended up taking some clown classes and some directing classes with Stephen Hill and Adrian Wong.
Mm-hmm, of
and
course.
Turns out, low-key, they are probably one of my favorite classes at SFU.
Right.
Yeah, and that really changed how I see my practice. And now I'm thinking about going to this clown school in France.
Right. We were just talking about that clown school in France with Shanice Stanislas of Mail Order.
Right.
They had gone over there, and
yeah.
I think kind of changed their life, actually. And also Aaron Coates from Calgary also had gone there. He's involved with Mail Order as well.
Right.
I know, of course, Stephen Hill from Leaky Heaven Circus, and he then became a professor up at SFU. And Adrian Wong was not a founder, but very close to a co-founder of New World Theater which has done so many seminal pieces, political pieces here with Marcus Youssef and Kamigar Chai, and they really kind of set a huge bar in the city in the late 90s, early aughts. And now Adrian's with Folda, right? She's with the thing. Yeah, so she's doing that. And she's just moved. She just came from, she was in...
Bath.
Yeah, she was Banff, yeah. And now has moved to the islands. So she's... Yeah, I know. That was just kind of cool. Kind of a trajectory.
Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, maybe she'll visit the mainland more often now that she's closer.
Yeah, I directed her in a show many moons ago, but it was fun. She's a lovely person, great writer, really lovely artist. So yeah. So this is a good question though. So you're a film dude. You like film. I mean, it's not so far away from theater, but what sort of... I mean, was it always the imagination in this particular piece that you were going to do it as a theater piece, or did you see it as a filmed piece, or?
So when I was still in school, I always thought, okay, I want to do film, but then for some reason, theater opportunity just keeps coming. And I've started like doing theater in my high school as a tech since I was like 12, 13 years old. So it's interesting that it keeps coming back, and over the course of the pandemic, I ended up working with a lot of theater companies as a live stream technician,
right?
Because of my film skills, and then one thing leads to another. I ended up taking Adrian's class, and that was like in like the very beginning of the pandemic, everything was online. So then Adrian was teaching this class called Digital Theater, or something like that. And I took the class, and she found me a play. It was Selfie by Christine Quintana, and my idea was that I'm going to turn this play into some sort of a live stream cinema kind of a work with like camera and cell phones and things like that. And then that play was which is a great play to work with in that medium, because it has a lot to do with social media and perspectives and forms. And then 2 years later, the play got presented at FODA.
Ah, cool. Yeah, that's so cool. Which is a digital online festival.
Yes,
that's what they do. Yeah. I'm simplifying that. I know there's more to it, but that's how I'm going to describe it right now. Yeah.
It's the Festival of Live Digital Art.
There you go. Thank you, Anthony.
Yeah. So it was really awesome. That was my directing debut in theater.
Cool.
And of course, like every now and then, I would be making films, but those are like smaller scale. And plus, I've only graduated from SFU like last year.
Oh wow! Okay.
So
all right.
So I'm very young, very emerging.
Yeah.
But I thought, okay, well, I wanted to do something that's live performance in physically, and I always wanted to do a show with hot pot and cooking. So when I saw that the Fringe was happening this year, I just submitted a title, and I know I can't write a 60-minute show, so I submitted the 30-minute category.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And here you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting too. I think sometimes, like what you said about the pandemic and being online and figuring out Zoom and this way in which to direct a particular thing or to film a particular thing using, the available medium. How about that? Media is interesting to me. How did you? And I will go into. I'm going to want to go back to your show, but I just was asking, how did you find that? Was it an interesting exploration to kind of do that? I mean, your piece ended up in Folda, but I mean, what about that did you take away from that experience? I guess what was the thing that you thought that was sort of the little gem that you took away from that experience? Because we were all in this weird space of like, how do we do an artistic enterprise and make it meaningful and interesting and maybe expansive as a vision and anyway, I just am wondering how you felt at the end of doing that.
I think it really opened up the way that I was approaching creation. How like when I took clown class with my theater students, they were so much about, oh, let's just do it and try it out, and then we'll see if that works. And for me, that was such a new concept because I always have to like think about, oh, okay, will this cut together? Like if I write this is gonna, like, will the audience get it, and things like that. It's a lot about calculation rather than just experimenting and try and error. So I think the idea of try and error was something that really just screws into my brain after these series of theater creations and working with a lot of like amazing theater artists. And that was the one thing that was that gave me the courage to, okay, well, next time if I'm on a film set or if I'm creating something that's with media, maybe it's also worth it to apply this technique as well.
No, cool. That's really interesting. I think it's such a it's such an interesting thing when people. I think we all set ourselves up for perfectionism at certain times, especially if you are analytical and that you kind of approach the world like that, and then you allow yourself. But if you allow yourself the space to sort of, well, this could work, this could not work, we'll see. It's such a huge freedom that happens with it. I'm not always good at it, for sure, but I have to say the funnest times I've had is when I've done that, where creation has come out of sort of a really sense of play, I guess, where not everything's going to be there, but, you're going to end up, you're going to be, wherever you end up may not be where you imagined you were going to end up, but it's the whole experience was sort of, learn the opportunity to learn things.
And it's not just about the work too, it's also about how different people from their disciplines, like, they just think differently. And sometimes, like, as a very new, emerging artists, like going into it, there were some conflicts and there were a lot of things that I was learning, but I was really enjoying that part of the conflict. That taught me what I want to take from it and what I want to leave it, I think. Yes. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's a really interesting thing. I remember being also sometimes, when you have I maybe I'll rephrase this in this way, is that I once did a workshop in Calgary with One Yellow Rabbit, who does a summer workshop, and they have this beautiful space, and they wanted everybody to do like a 12-minute piece, let's say. And so they gave you 10 lights, right, all of which were actually kind of like very much structural lights, right? So there's a circle over here, a square over here, a thing over here, right? So and so it really informed, because I had a limit, because I couldn't go outside. Well, I could, but nobody would see you outside of that light, and I used it sort of like a little train that I was on. I felt like a little train I was on. It really helped me create a piece that was I understood that I could actually do something within a really short, small vocabulary. You know what I mean? To be able to create it, and it was useful because I knew that, okay, well, I can't make that choice. I can only make this choice, right? Because that choice isn't working. So I think in lots of ways, I heard in what you were saying too is that sort of sense of like, I'm going over here and there's a conflict, there's a problem, but okay, then that choice can't be made, or like it kind of moves you towards another choice, or the choice that you choose, right? Because it defines those kind of conflicts or problems, start to define how the piece is going to shape itself.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, you wrote it very
okay,
nicely.
Good. Oh, good. Yeah. I'm glad I was
yeah.
picking up when you were throwing down. Sometimes I'm,
Yeah, no.
What I saw the piece, and thank you very much. It was good work.
Thank you for coming.
And I'm sorry, I forget the name of the young actor who was in it.
Her name is Carly.
Yes, great. She was lovely. She was a she, yes?
She, yes.
She is a she. Okay, she's. I love the whole thing. It very much reminded me. Sorry, I don't want to give too much away. So perhaps, but I will say it did remind me about being at the Peony in the trade show area.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. That's the flavor anyway, a little bit of that. But maybe you tell me how you would like to describe this piece.
Well, so I guess Discounted Hot Pot Center is, I would say it's a live cooking show about down to her luck lady, which I didn't write that. You're mad. The marketing director wrote that, and which I thought was amazing. But anyways, it's about a down to her luck lady, a sales lady trying to sell her hot pot package. So if you come in and see our show, you would expect somebody doing a sales pitch on you. Yeah.
Yes, and with sort of broader themes. Yes.
And what we're really trying to explore is what it really means to pick up this identity of being someone in exile and the diasporic identity of being a Hong Konger living overseas. Mm-hmm. And this is a voice that I have not seen too much in the arts, whether that's in film or theater. And a part of this project is to promote this voice. Maybe there isn't a lot of people doing these kind of work right now, but in 10 years, I believe there will be more, and somebody has to do it first.
Yeah, I was thinking as I was watching it, it's interesting because there's so much connection with Hong Kong here in Vancouver. Like we have huge ties to Pacific Rim countries and a large Asian populations that have been here and go back and forth. Like there's so I think you're right. I haven't always seen exactly this conversation a little bit with Hong Kong Exile. Maybe that's a theater company. I'm not making that up. They're a theater company, and Milton Lim and fellow persons that work with him. But what do you think sort of prompted you to start thinking about it in this way? Like, what was I know there's been there's a huge change that is going on in Hong Kong right now. Is that what sort of was the springboard to starting to think about what the connection is, or how you have one foot in one world and one foot in the other?
I think part of it is because of the change that has been happening in recent years. But more importantly, I think I think it's mostly because the experience that I had ever since I moved here, and seeing the change that happened within me and the change that's happening like among my peers who are just like me. And I just wanted to like figure out what that change is and what is right. Like, for example, when I first moved here, like just like the I don't want to spoil it, but
no, let's not spoil it. But
yeah.
Yes, but just like yes.
Yes. I remember someone telling me this word, this phase of like cultural rejection, something like that, where when you go to a new country, like you stop seeing, like you want to detach from what you had,
right.
Because you want to fit in. And that's something that I resonate with in the last couple of years, and I go back and forth between like I should probably not speak as much Cantonese because I say, for example, I want to learn English, and then there's also the vice versa thing, like, hey, that's my roots and things like that. So then I ended up really wanted to make a show from this perspective, and yeah.
From your perspective, that's interesting what you're saying about language too, because this show is very much steeped in it's a language, right? I mean, it is a very much a monologue going through one character's experience, right? Do you feel, from your perspective, do you feel like there is an imposition from quote unquote Canadian culture to speak English all the time, or do you, and probably a little bit, obviously, we're we think of ourselves as an English speaking country. I've used quotes there, by the way, everybody. Or do you feel like that was something internally you were grappling with? maybe a combination of both?
Let me put it this way. I think in the throughout the writing process, I was trying to figure out who are my audience. Is it the general public who doesn't know much about this culture and wants to be more interested in it, or is it people like myself who's longing for a voice in the arts, who's longing for this story to be told, someone who miss hot pot as much as I do. And I couldn't I couldn't figure out an answer because I with a lot of shows that touches on like lived experience, it's inevitably hard to find that middle ground, like how much exposition do I have to give to the audience before the Conger's audience think it's whitewashed.
Yeah.
And that was something that I was having so much trouble with, like, and there's also the other way around. It's like, are these all inside joke that nobody would understand? So I think, and then at the end, I just, okay, you know what? I can't do a show that I don't enjoy watching.
Yeah.
So I'm going to work on a show that I like watching, which I guess it has both things. But like in the last couple of showings, like we've seen some Congers come in and they were giggling a lot.
Oh, that's good.
And I was really glad.
Yeah. Well, it is very funny. I mean, It's very funny. And also, yes, goes into other areas as well, but it is that sort of, I think anybody can relate to it in that sense of trying so hard to do something and trying so hard to have a persona that is chipper and happy and all that kind of stuff, and still other stuff is happening underneath, and things aren't going well, really. There's not there's lots of metaphors, which I won't go into in the play, but I was struck by that, like that sense of, maybe it's a particular kind of courage, maybe that sense of being ebullient and or happy or have that kind of high energy in the sense in the area of just not knowing what's happening with your life, right? Which I think everybody can relate to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. At the end, at the heart of it is someone sharing their vulnerability, and as audience, we all love seeing that. I guess I do.
No. I think so.
Yes.
I think we relate to it.
Whether it is like seeing the acts of tragedy or whether you're going high or low, like I think I just enjoy it when I see that. Oh, things are not going well. What do I do?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of the essence of clown, that, may I say. It's
true,
like
yes.
It's like you set up a situation and then you keep on breaking the ability to fix the situation, I think but also it's as a young artist and emerging voice and have a particular perspective, a new unique perspective. It's often like the stories themselves like are unique. Of course they are, because they're your stories and you're telling them. And then, but what is also true in my experience, and what you said, like there's, I won't say Congers because I'm not going to repeat something that you said as if I can say it too. But so there were other people from Hong Kong in the audience who were who were laughing at it. But I was in an audience and there were people who looked like me, middle-aged white women, who were laughing at it also and could really relate to that sense of trying to do the same thing over and over again and realizing that you can't, like, you can't go back to what it was, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, totally.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, the word Hong Konger is in the Oxford dictionary, so you're free to say that.
Okay, good. Great. Something I knew. Now I know something. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So where do you, like, I think when I was watching the show, though, for sure, I was thinking, I feel like there's going to be another like version of this somewhere down the line? Do you feel like you're like moving towards something? Do you feel like it's a complete, thing? I don't know. I'm just asking because you have so many different things you work in.
Yes. I think like I'm really happy with. I think this is exactly where I wanted to be at. With this version of this Counted Hotpot Center, it was my first time attempting writing for theater, and it was my first time directing in-person theater, and like just like a lot of shows, like a lot of comedy shows, like you don't really know whether some of the stuff will work until there's an audience.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that until like last Thursday, and which I'm glad, like, some of the stuff really worked, and some of the stuff I do see rooms of improvements, and and I definitely see like next iteration coming in, and
That's cool.
And maybe next time we get to serve the hot pot food to the audience.
Oh, yeah, right?
Yeah.
That would be lots of fun. Yeah, I think you might need like another person, assisting in that because it takes a bit of time, just having seen it done before. Yeah, I see what you mean, but that's just true of everything. If it's your work, until you get it, and if it's a performative experience, until you get in front of an audience, which is another character, in your experience, and the energy that they get back, then you kind of see, oh, I see how this functions. I see, most from my point of view when I've done work, I says mostly, I can just cut all of that. They don't need to know all of that. It's a relief. Because sometimes you fight so hard for a line or a thing you want to keep in, and then it's like, oh no, they were right. I should have cut it.
Yeah. No, we totally cut a lot of stuff. So.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now tell us when the next shows are.
Oh, it's Thursday to Sunday, September 15th to the 18th, 6:30 p.m. at the Picnic Pavilion at Grandview Island.
Great.
Yes.
And you can get your tickets at VancouverFringe.com. And there's still tickets available. So please do. We want to support all the artists and certainly the show. So thank you. What if you were going to put in like what I call your elevator pitch, and you're going to say, so describe your show in one sentence. Could you do it? And what would it be?
Oh my God. Hot pot show, live cooking, Hong Kong. Well, I can't even formulate that was a really bad elevator pitch. But I think what I learned just now is that I think like, like when we first started to write this show, I approached my co-creator and assistant director Hillary, and we were all like, okay, well, we don't want to write, we don't want to make a CBC show, like CBC means Canadian born Chinese.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not the
going...
TV station. Yeah. So because we share this, I think like we share this lived experience in living in another city, and we want to share that from that perspective. And then we were like, oh, okay, so how are we different from the CBC shows? Like, and then we list out the things that we see that are seen as like how the West sees Hong Kong, which is like, you think about Transformer, they shot in Hong Kong. You think about like, wet market, and you think about like these Chinese food, and you think about like crowded street. And then we realized the thing that they were thinking is pretty much the same as what we were thinking. We were also thinking about the wet market. We were also thinking about like the crowds, and so then at the end, we came to the conclusion that maybe it's not so different. So then what is the thing that tells these two identities apart, like the second generation Asian Canadian and recent immigrants? So that's why we just thought we should do something. We should not actively trying to segregate that identity, but just reinforce what I know and what we know. yeah.
Yeah.
I totally went
That's
sidetracked.
all right. No, that's all right. I started to think, many, my parents, my dad was a big soccer fan. Mm-hmm. Football for those other people. So we used to go to this outdoor arena, and it was for the Whitecaps, but the Whitecaps, different kind of version. And it was all outdoors, so we'd sit out there, we'd cold, you know what I mean? So everybody's snuggled up and watching the soccer season, and there were all these old dudes behind us were all smoking pipes like all the time.
Right.
And so that when one could still do that, and it would waft down the bleachers towards you, and my parents were born in Canada, and their parents were born in Canada, Irish and French and all that stuff mix. But I'm not even sure the dudes behind us weren't born in Canada, but how my parents put it to me, well, they're from the old country. And what they meant was Ireland, or they meant England, or they meant the UK. But we're all tied to these situations. I mean, it's not in the same way, but it's very interesting because that was multiple generations removed from what you are having experience for. But that intersection still exists in people's experiences of immigration, right? About what, how people think about it still, or think about themselves still sometimes. And, and also, of course, the added complication of being here in Indigenous lands and what that means, certainly for somebody who looks like me, and how, I think I was saying to Dolores Drake yesterday, one of the things that Canada has always had these two very big examples of Canadian identity, like she's from Newfoundland, so she was talking about that kind of really specific thing, and then I was talking about also Quebec, of course, and that specific thing. But I should really also say that in spite of all of our efforts, all the Indigenous worlds in which we have all coexisted in, sometimes not harmoniously, and really and are coming to reconcile, and coming to both reconcile and also come to terms with about what has happened in our past. All those things, they're all of informing of a particular intersection of identity, right? And it's interesting what you were saying is like, how do you root out, like, how do you separate, like, the threads, even for somebody who's more newly to the country, to Canada, or Vancouver, and to people who see themselves as, quote unquote, a Canadian, or what I mean, who born here and all that stuff. It's interesting to me. There's still that conversation all the time.
Totally. And and having lived here for 6 years, like, I don't really know, like, whether there is an answer, because I was just talking to a friend the other day, and he was saying how there is, like, a lot of immigrants that moved here, that those are the newcomers, and what they see and what they experience are very different from what I have experienced. And I'm not even, like, that new. Like, I've only moved here 6 years ago. So then there's always going to be waves and waves of, like, new experience that's going to challenge you, and maybe they're going to be like, no, what you have, it's, that's very whitewashed, and then the next generation is going to go on, and maybe that's just what it is when you have to immigrate to a new country.
Maybe, yeah. I think you leave. You have some things you keep with you, and some things that change, and we're creatures of change, even though we don't like to think of ourselves that way sometimes, because it's just destabilizing. Yeah. But it's interesting.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Oh, thank you for sharing yours. I really appreciate it. It's very cool. Yeah, and thank you for coming and having a conversation.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So again, Discounted Hot Pot, going on Thursday through Sunday at 6:15 now?
6:30 now.
6:30 now. At the Picnic Pavilion, VancouverFringe.com. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back tomorrow. I don't know who with. They just trying to telling me the day 5 minutes before I'm going to talk to them. Not quite, but anyway, have a very good day. Talk to you soon. Bye.